Chanavallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Chanavallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Chanavallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Chanavallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gora Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Nita Gopramanande Jam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Stotra Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Loving Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Stotra Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Go Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Munamaya Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Our Divine Loving Lordships Shri Shri Nitai Mahapachandra Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaura Hari Ki Jai. Shri Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai. Nita Go Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from the 4th canto, 10th chapter, entitled Dhruva Maharaja's Fight with the Yakshas. And we're reading from text 2 until 5, because 2, 3 and 3 don't have purports, and for some reason I was given until 5, so we'll just do that. So if you don't mind, I'll just read the translations of the text without purports, and then we'll do the full Sanskrit recitation of text 4. Together. Ilayam apiparyayam Vayuputriam Mahabala Putram Utkala Namanang Yosidratnang Ajijanat. Translation. The greatly powerful Dhruva Maharaj had another wife named Ila, who was the great daughter of the demigod Vayu. By her he begot a son named Utkala and a very beautiful daughter. Text 3. Utamastvakritoodvaho mringayayang baliyasya hata punya janenadra tanmatasya gatim gata. Translation. Dhruva Maharaja's younger brother Uttama, who was still unmarried, once went on a hunting excursion and was killed by a powerful yaksha in the Himalaya mountains. Along with him, his mother, Suruchi, also followed the path of her son. She died. Text 4. Dhruvo Prativadam Shrutva Kaupamasha Suchapita Chitrang Syandanam Ashtaya Kataha Punyajanalayam Dhruvobrita Vadanam Shrutva Gopamasha Suchapita Chaitram Syandanam Ashtaya Kata Punya Janalayam Dhruvo Brati Vadang Shutva Gopamasha Suchapita Chaitrang Syandanam Astyaya Kata Punya Janalayam. Dhruva Maharaj Prativadham, the killing of his brother. Shrutva, hearing the news. Kopa, anger. Amasha, vengeance. Socha, lamentation. Apitaha, being filled with. Jaitram, victorious. Syandanam, the chariot. Astaya, getting on. Gataha, went. Punyajana alayam, to the city of the Yakshas. Translation and purport by His Divine Loving Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When Dhruva Maharaj heard of the killing of his brother Uttama by the Yakshas in the Himalaya mountains, being overwhelmed with lamentation and anger, he got on his chariot and went out for victory over the city of the Yakshas, Alak Kapuri. Dhruva Maharaja's becoming angry, overwhelmed with grief, and envious of the enemies was not incompatible with his position as a great devotee. It is a misunderstanding that a devotee should not be angry, envious, or overwhelmed by lamentation. Dhruva Maharaj was the king, and when his brother was unceremoniously killed, it was his duty to take revenge against the Yakshas from the Himalayas. Om Jnana Timinandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurundinataranam Shri Chaitanya Manobhistang Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadam Tikam Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavanishvari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuba Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to class this morning. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I'm very grateful to be able to approach the Srimad Bhagavatam for shelter. In the last few days, I felt different kinds of struggles, and I tried to take shelter of various methods of the Lord, various methods of connecting with the Lord. And I found by far the method of taking shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, and most importantly speaking about that shelter, has been very beneficial to me and sheltering. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity to take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. I appreciated this text. I was also given text 5, so I'd just like to honor the translation and purport, and then I'll speak on text 4 if that's okay. Dhruva Maharaj went to the northern direction of the Himalayan range. In a valley he saw a city full of ghostly persons who were followers of Lord Shiva. The purport says that in this verse it is stated that the Yakshas are more or less devotees of Lord Shiva. By this indication, the Yakshas may be taken to be the Himalayan tribes like the Tibetans. And I suppose when I think of Tibetans, you think of Buddhist monasteries and so on and so forth. And what I appreciate about this purport of text 4 is it is defeating that kind of thinking of voidism, impersonalism, and all is illusion, all is zero. Can you think why I might be saying that, or what part of it might be alluding to the fact that we are persons and we are not to negate everything and become zero? So I just want to say on the microphone what Srila Karuna Sindha Avatar was saying, because in case it's broadcasted. So he said that what illustrates not being an impersonalist in this verse is that it's a misunderstanding that a devotee should not be angry, envious or overwhelmed by lamentation. And he explained that Lord Nishingadev uses anger to protect devotees, and we should also utilize our emotions to protect Srila Prabhupada, protect his ISKCON. That's what you were saying basically. Is there a microphone in case? Because I like to make it very interactive. So thank you, Karuna Avatar, for that point. Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to focus on in this purport, Hare Krishna Mataji. It's a misunderstanding that a devotee should not be angry, envious or overwhelmed by lamentation. And I appreciate your example of Lord Nishingadev. I was thinking of Lord Chaitanya, who came to teach us how to be devotees, and Madai had attacked Lord Nityananda. And without hesitation, the Lord pulled his chakra, and we saw in the beautiful play on Saturday. It was obviously very tumultuous, and it was probably an extremely frightening experience. He wasn't joking, he was ready to kill Madai. He was ready to fully display his anger and kill the offender of the devotee, of his devotee. And so that's an example that he's showing. And Srila Prabhupada, I wanted to read you an example of Srila Prabhupada's, they call it his lion-like anger that he displayed. So the devotees were in a part of India called Prabhupada and his disciples were en route to Indore, a city 475,000 in the central Indian province of Madhya Pradesh, 13 hours northeast of Bombay. The directors of a Gita Jayanti Mahotsava, a festival to celebrate the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, had invited Prabhupada and his disciples to attend their convention and public meeting. So Srila Prabhupada had been asked to speak, and it's described he was really getting ready to be fierce against impersonalism and Mayavadism, and he was gearing himself up. And then unfortunately, they put Srila Prabhupada, well, not unfortunately, but they put Srila Prabhupada right at the end. I think it's described in here that it was because they knew he'd keep the crowd, and he knew that he would attract the crowd, but he felt a little that he wanted to not wait right until the end if he was to speak the next day. So he asked his disciples to try and arrange that. And anyway, after Srila Prabhupada spoke on the first day, that's not where he got angry, by the way. After Srila Prabhupada spoke on the first day, he told the devotees to have a kirtan. And it became very spontaneous and very ecstatic. So they were on stage and they started this kirtan, and it was just this sea of devotees, future devotees who were listening to Srila Prabhupada, people who had come to this pandal, and they weren't really responding. So the devotees jumped right into the crowd and just started to get everyone chanting Hare Krishna ecstatically. And the directors of the pandal very much appreciated this, and so the next day they put Srila Prabhupada at the end again, and it was disappointing because it's not what he wanted. But that's not where he displayed his anger. So he never displayed his anger for himself. But what happened was then the directors, after the lecture, Srila Prabhupada said again, kirtan. So the devotees stood on stage and they started kirtan, and then the directors were trying to get them to reenact yesterday's scene of spontaneous go into the crowd and get them ecstatic about chanting Hare Krishna. But it's described that was a spontaneous event and it wasn't the same mood that day. So the directors started like touching the devotees' feet and trying to pull them into the crowd. And then one of those people pulled on one of the Mataji's saris to pull her down into the crowd. And so Srila Prabhupada was busy chanting. And as he saw that, he became fierce and lion-like, and he took his kartals and he started to swing it at the devotee's face. I was at this director's face. So we see that Srila Prabhupada was disappointed that his request wasn't adhered to or honored. His request wasn't honored. And Srila Prabhupada is the Jagat Guru of this universe. And he deserves every honor if he requests something. But it wasn't honored, and they still put him at the end. But he never got cross about that, and he never fought with them. He just gave his talk. But then the point is that for the devotee, he displayed his anger. He showed it fully for the protection of a devotee. So that's Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai. Shri Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Shri Nitai Gaura Hari ki jai. So Lord Chaitanya also showed his anger. And then another emotion that's mentioned in the purport is, it's a misunderstanding a devotee should not be angry. Then envious. I was a little bit bewildered about envious. How does a devotee display envy? Because I've heard before that the envy has no place in bhakti, and we have to completely overcome the propensity of envy. So I thought of one pastime that I'll share, but I don't personally like to speak about Krishna or gopis. But in Shri Shri Radha Radhanath, I hope we'll have that kind of shelter just to be able to. So basically, Lord Krishna had exited the rasa dance with Srimati Radharani, and the gopis start to display various emotions after this took place. So it says, basically they went on this journey of realizing Krishna was gone, and they started to get anxious and lament, and they were walking through the forest and starting to enact Krishna's pastimes and asking all the trees, have you seen Krishna? Where is Krishna? Asking all the creepers. And eventually I think they found the footprints of Lord Krishna. This is how strong their desire is to find. And they found his footprints, and then they could exactly understand what he was doing just by looking at his footprints. Because, he's got certain marks under his feet. Oh, he walked this way. And then they noticed another set of footprints, and they said, oh, there's a very special gopi who's with Krishna. And it says here, in this, and they were asking, but why? Why did he leave with her? And it says here, in this way, all the gopis pointed out the faults of a particular gopi who had been taken alone by Krishna. They said that this chief gopi, Radharani, must be very proud of her position, thinking herself the greatest of the gopis. Yet, how could Krishna take her away alone, leaving all of us aside, unless she is extraordinarily qualified and beautiful? She must have taken Krishna into the deep forest and told him, my dear Krishna, I'm now very tired and I cannot go any further. Please carry me wherever you like. So they're analyzing all this by the footprints. So they see two sets of footprints, then they see it turns into one set of footprints, which is Krishna's. So they figure, oh, she must have become tired and asked Krishna to carry her. And then I'll discuss the second point later. So the point is, for sure, gopis are never ever envious of Srimati Radharani. That is a fact. That is undisputable. But when it says they pointed out the faults of the chiefmost gopi, in a material understanding, we know pointing out the faults of someone to be envy, because why you? Why not me? I want it. Why? So it seems like envy, but it's definitely not. It's only something that they display to enhance the next thing that takes place. Because if they never felt these things, they wouldn't have been able to display the next part of the situation, which is so then what happens is that Lord Krishna feels that Srimati Radharani is displaying some kind of pride, and he disappears even from her. So they're still analyzing the footprints, and as soon as they see that he left her, they become so anxious. They said, she's alone, we have to go and find her, and they went to her immediately. So they proved immediately they were not really envious. They were simply enacting certain things so that other things could unfold for Krishna's pleasure. So in no way are they envious, but I just wanted to think of something where it says here, it's a misunderstanding that a devotee should not be angry, envious, or overwhelmed by lamentation. So that's something I could think of where envy seems to have been displayed. And the last one, which is lamentation, I wanted to give an example from the fourth, also this canto, further on in this canto, in the 28th chapter, Maharaj Puranjana, I think. Maharaj Puranjana has left his body, and then there's this scene is described where someone is lamenting appropriately, that lamentation has its place. Because we see with anger, for example, just to go back to anger, Maharaj Dhruva, no, the sage, Dhruvasa Muni, was also displaying anger, but the Lord didn't appreciate that anger. He was displaying anger for what appeared to be his own selfish desires to break his fast, something like that, and the Lord displayed dissatisfaction with that display of anger. But in the case where it's for a devotee, then that is, or for the protection of a devotee, or then in the next of devotion it describes that that's bona fide. So also another example of lamentation that the Lord didn't allow was, can anyone think of one where the Lord said, why are you lamenting? Yeah. No. So Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, this is not worth lamenting over. Because Lord Krishna had already tried to, himself, he tried to find peace. He tried to say, can we have an alternative? And these personalities were determined not to listen. So Krishna had ordained this battle, and Arjuna was being encouraged to fight and perform his duty and not lament over what seemed to be the death of certain bodies. But then there's this example of how it is encouraged that one should lament. So Maharaj Paranjana had left his body, and it says, the translation says, this is the 4th canto, the chapter 28, text 47. Being now alone, so this is after he died and his wife is sitting there. Being now alone and a widow in their forest, the daughter of Vidarbha began to lament, incessantly shedding tears, which soaked her breast and crying very loudly. Purport. Figuratively, the queen is supposed to be the disciple of the king. Thus, when the mortal body of the spiritual master expires, his disciples should cry exactly as the queen cries when the king leaves his body. However, the disciple and spiritual master are never separated, because the spiritual master always keeps company with the disciple, as long as the disciple follows strictly the instructions of the spiritual master. This is called the association of vani, or words. Physical presence is called vapu. As long as the spiritual master is physically present, the disciple should serve the physical body of the spiritual master, and when the spiritual master is no longer physically existing, the disciple should serve the instructions of the spiritual master. So we can see that here, Hare Krishna, here it's not that Arjuna's instruction from Lord Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra is relevant to a disciple who's lost their spiritual master. So learning to express our emotions in bhakti is the highest art form, and the Nectar of Devotion spends a lot of time describing these emotions and how we can express them in bhakti. And His Holiness Devamrita Maharaj also delivered a seminar called, I think it's called Bhava Bhakti, the emotional dynamics of a devotee. And he described, Bhava Bhakti, Bhakti Bhava, thank you Mataji. It's called Bhakti Bhava, the emotional dynamics of a devotee. And I have a little excerpt from there that someone sent me recently that I wanted to share. What time do we end class, Mataji? 8:30. Okay, thank you. When your heart is empty, you feel horrible, right? When your heart doesn't feel fulfilled, you are very disturbed. If we can't satisfactorily express ourselves, we pain. Now the reason why so many of you came to Krishna, this is His Holiness Devamrita Maharaj speaking. Now the reason why so many of you came to Krishna consciousness was because you were frustrated in your emotional expression in material life. First of all, I want you to understand that reality. You tried expressing yourself through Triguna Maya, the 3 modes of material nature. You tried to satisfy your heart in the illusory kingdom of Maya, but because you failed, And then somehow or other you found out about Krishna consciousness. Here you are. When you first come to Krishna consciousness, you're experiencing great relief from material suffering. It's like you've been in a fiercely hot desert for a long time, and then you walk into a nicely air-conditioned room. What I'd like you to realize is that in the beginning, so many of us are simply feeling the emotions of relief. Just think about that. The refreshing downpour of relief emotions. Think about some times when you really went through a tough situation, and then afterwards you felt good. You had that feeling of phew. Often in the beginning years of Krishna consciousness, our emotions are mainly that. Yes, from time to time we may experience some elation at a big festival, and a sense or a whiff of the spiritual world in kirtan or japa. But for some time, our main emotional feeling in bhakti is simply relief that we're not suffering so acutely anymore. You can't sustain that for long. After a while, you have to do something else. Many devotees, however, don't make it past this stage of phew. Therefore, after some time, Maya forces them back into the material activities because they did not sufficiently develop their devotee emotions as Krishna's servant. We're going to be hearing from Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam, where Bhakti Bhava, the emotions of devotional service are described. This will be a provocative topic because I found that many devotees don't see room for their emotional expression in bhakti. We'll talk about that misconception. If you come every day to this seminar, by the time it ends, a week from now, you'll hear about the emotions of being a servant in Vaikuntha, the emotions of being a servant in Vrindavan, and the emotions of being a servant in the material world. We'll discuss how all the greatest personalities in both the material and spiritual worlds are tasting Bhakti Bhava. In this way, I hope that you're going to feel how you can come alive in Krishna consciousness with your heart and your emotions. I know that's what so many of you want. Indeed, as the Nectar of Devotion explains, that's what Krishna wants from you. So I actually have that seminar on my cell phone. If anyone would like it, you can chat to me and we can share it. I'm still getting into it for a second time. I've only read the book once and I definitely need a refresher. So just to recap, the purport of today's text said, Dhruva Maharaja's becoming angry, overwhelmed with grief, and envious of the enemies was not, so the enemies are the yakshas who have killed his brother. All these emotions are not incompatible with his position as a great devotee. It's a misunderstanding that a devotee should not be angry, envious, or overwhelmed by lamentation. Dhruva Maharaj was the king, and when his brother was unceremoniously killed, it was his duty to take revenge against the yakshas from the Himalayas. So just to recap, we described that anger was not appreciated by by Dhruva Maharaj by Dhruvasa Muni against Ambarish Maharaj, because it was sort of self-centered and it wasn't justified anger, but the anger of Lord Chaitanya is bona fide because he displayed anger to kill Madai, who had offended his devotee, and his brother, just like Dhruva Maharaj's brother was killed. So Lord Chaitanya was ready to kill for that, although he never, but he fully displayed his anger. And we also described a pastime of Srila Prabhupada, who was invited to a pandal to speak, and he was a bit disappointed that they kept putting him at the end of the discussion, and he wanted to be in a different position, but they never granted that. And he tolerated it, but when the directors tried to pull one of the females off of the stage to get them to dance in the crowd for kirtan, Srila Prabhupada displayed it's described like fierce, lion-like anger, and he swung kartals at that devotee's face to protect his spiritual daughter. And then for envy, we described how the gopis pretended to display some envy towards Srimati Radharani when she was taken away by Krishna alone in the forest. They seemed to point out her faults, but this was just so that in the next moment they could fully experience the emotion of anxiety when they realized he had left her alone and they went to go comfort her. And for lamentation, we described how Arjuna wasn't encouraged to lament because Krishna's desire was that these kings and soldiers be killed because they were not receiving Krishna's message of peace, nor the Pandavas' rightful plea that they just have a small piece of land on which to conduct their duties. But the disciple, represented by the queen of King Puranjana, who left his body, she represents the disciple and he represents the spiritual master. It's described that that lamentation is necessary. The disciple should lament the physical departure of the spiritual master, however, should not feel that the spiritual master is really gone, but should fully take shelter of his instructions and associate with him in that way. And that's it. If there are any questions or comments, that would be very nice. Or corrections or criticisms or anything like that.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you for that. I just want to read this and then we'll talk about it. Dhruva Maharaj was the king, and when his brother was unceremoniously killed, it was his duty to take revenge against the Yakshas from the Himalayas. So now, as spiritualists, we read this line like, revenge and all that, but as we see, it was his duty. But like in our day and age, is there a time when we should take revenge? Is there a time to show compassion? How can we gauge that? Because when we read this, we may think, oh, Dhruva Maharaj did it, I can do it.
So we always have to try our best to check everything with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So if we want to express a particular, it's hard to say that because the emotions come up, but if we want to, we should always check with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra before we run out and, take revenge on those who are, again, whatever. And also it's very important to know that further on in this chapter, Dhruva Maharaj's revenge had to be curbed by his elders. He went a bit too far. They sanctioned that he took revenge on his brother's death and it was bona fide. But then he went a bit far and he really, it was an onslaught. And the elders felt, Swayambhuva Manu felt that he was now also killing the innocent yakshas. And so it wasn't unrestricted revenge. He was actually curtailed by his elders. So from that I can say we should always take shelter of our elders in expressing these emotions, because we don't want to become sahajas or anything like that. We're trying to learn how to utilize our emotions, but we always have to check them with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. And if we stay closely connected to Shastra and our sadhana and our elders, then we'll be okay. Is that okay? Svarup Damodar Prabhu.
Just in regard to this question from Karuna Sindhu, the Prabhupada says he was the king, and as a king he had a duty to protect his citizens and make them feel safe. And if he didn't respond appropriately to that unceremonious killing of his brother, then his citizens would have felt unprotected. So he had to do that. Of course, it was also backed up by his own emotional anger as well, but as a king he had to do that as a Kshatriya king. Kshatriya means to protect. So his act was in line with his role as a king and as the protector of his citizens.
Thank you very much, Swarup Damodar Prabhu. Mother Rukmini.
Hare Krishna. I was interested if, I know you said you listened to it a long time ago, but I was interested if you could share a little bit more reflections from that seminar.
It really was a long time ago, and I guess just that excerpt I read about relief, I thought of something to say, but so the excerpt I read just described that His Holiness Devi Maharaj is encouraging us to move beyond the emotions of relief. So we come in from the material world and you find, wow, devotee association is so relieving from, I don't know, the exploitative association of those who just want me to fulfill my paycheck or whatever it is. And we find so much shelter in prasadam, so much shelter in kirtan, so much relief from the material pangs. But I guess what I understand the Bhava Bhakti book does is encourages us to take it further than the emotion of relief. So yes, thank you, Lord, for our daily bread. That's very kind of you. But we have to move past the relationship of just thank you, because the real nectar comes out when we say thank you, but what can I do for you? What can I do to reciprocate? Thank you so much. And I guess that's where we move past it, because relief is also a form of gratitude. It's like, wow, thank you so much for everything. This is so amazing. Thank you for this beautiful palace to give me shelter from my mind and your beautiful form, your beautiful deity form. Or we look at the deity form and say, thank you so much for giving me the shelter of this darshan to start my day and for being so present, so personal. But then we have to move from that into action. He says, Devi Maharaj says that we have to do something else. So yeah, he's just encouraging us to move beyond just a lot of gratitude and thankfulness and relief. That's all I can reflect. Like I said, it really was a long time ago, and I have to completely get into it again. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Jai Prabhu.
Yeah, in connection with this question, we see so many examples of anger being displayed by. I was thinking of another incident of Arjun when Ashwatham beheaded the 5 sons of Draupadi, and he was in such anger, and Krishna was riding his chariot and trying to capture Ashwatham, and eventually they did catch him. Arjun's eyes was like red, like copper balls. He described in that. Yeah. He was so seething with anger. Yeah. And when they eventually caught him, they trussed him like an animal, tied him, like an animal. And Krishna wanted him killed. So there was like a contentious argument between, and Draupadi wanted him spared. He's the son of a Brahmana. We shouldn't kill him. And then there's also the example of Maharaj Parikshit himself. When he saw the 4 legs of this king sort of masquerading as a king, was breaking the legs of the bull, and he became very angry. So the anger can be used in its transcendental, like Baba gives example of Hanuman. Hanuman became very angry, but for the pleasure of Ram, so that he could bring back Sita to Ram. So anger is transcendental. It's used in the service of the Lord. And same with Arjun. Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to make Arjun angry, to psych him up to fight and kill. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for that transcendental journey through so many pastimes. That was very nice. Thank you. And as I was hearing what you were saying, I was thinking, in a lot of those examples, the devotee had to deliberate very deeply before killing. It wasn't just, okay, this is a license to act on my anger. Arjuna had to deliberate. My wife has given me a particular instruction. Shri Krishna has given me a particular instruction. What is my duty? And he found that perfect way to satisfy both instructions by cutting the jewel from Ashwatthama's hair, thus killing him socially. And also, so that he satisfied that instruction. And also in not killing his physical body, he satisfied the instruction of a mother who couldn't bear to cause that type of pain to another mother of losing a son. So, and also, which was the other example you gave? Yes, he was ready to kill Kali. He was ready to kill him, but because he fell down as a subordinate, he had to deliberate. He couldn't just act on this anger. And even with Dhruva Maharaj, the anger was curbed by his elders. They gave him the appropriate expression of what he had to do as a king, and his duty to perform as a king, as Swarup Damodar Prabhu shared with us. But his elders also curbed it at some point and said, not unrestricted. So we see that contemplation is always there in these great devotees. It's quite a fine art. Thank you for that, Jai Prabhu. Karuna Sindhu Avatar Prabhu.
I don't know if I should say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. But it's also the thing that's coming to my mind is what just happened recently also to us in Cape Town, not just last year, where Gopakumar was stabbed in his neck. And we went with him to the hospital, and there was no anger. He was not angry, he was just holding his neck, and they were asking him so many stupid questions, like how much does he make in a month? Does he have medical aid or not? He was not showing any anger to them, not to the person that stabbed him. He was just answering very peacefully, and he was calming me down. I was like getting angry on his behalf. But so it just shows, like, sometimes you have to be equipoised. Like in that moment, I actually saw what equipoised mean, because I would have been lamenting, because as you know, misery likes company. But he was just so relaxed, so calm, and but at the temple they were beating up this man, and they were showing him. But then the person that actually got stabbed himself was relaxed. Until this day, he's still quite merciful towards him. He wishes that he repents, wants to still preach to him. So yeah.
Thank you very much for that point. So Lord Krishna also showed that example when, I think it's Bhrigu Muni, kicked him in the chest. He didn't retaliate. When he gets attacked, he doesn't retaliate. He just said, I'm sorry, is your foot okay? And he was really really concerned. I always think I would say that very sarcastically, like, I'm God and is your foot okay? How can you? But I think he was very compassionate, actually. Are you okay? And that's the example the Lord sets. So for ourselves, we're not supposed to get angry and take offense, like Trivasa Muni exhibited, and the Lord showed that he wasn't happy about that. But for a devotee, we become fully angry, as the devotees at the temple were displaying, by beating the guy up. And as you witnessed that this brahmachari was getting hurt and stabbed, he wasn't really even I vividly remember it. He got stabbed and he wasn't defending himself. He really just sat there, and he was very calm, and he just held his neck, and he just went to the hospital, and he was just chanting Hare Krishna. He wasn't defending himself. He was saying, maybe I deserve this, probably, so, which he doesn't, but okay. So, okay. Is that okay? Anyone else? Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nita Go Premanande Hari Hari Bo, Shri Shri Radha Radhanatha ki jai, Shri Shri Gaura ki jai, Shri Giri Govardhan ki jai. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.